Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the podcast. It has been a while. If you are new here, my name is Mel and I am a yarn dyer and I live on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. And if you're a returning viewer, then hi, welcome back. It has been quite a while. It's been a few months actually. I don't know what really stopped it. Kind of just, I don't know, everything. Mojo and just went out the window, and life stuff, family dramas and family basically stuff that I can't really talk about on the podcast. But lots of things kind of happened in the last few months that just kind of stopped me from recording, and to a certain degree stopped me from crafting a little bit. I've just been very, very busy, as well as just very chaotic around here. I'm going to focus this episode mostly on the finished objects that I have completed since I last recorded, plus a couple of exciting announcements that are coming, well, that are actually taking place by the time this video goes live. And then for the next episode I will focus on the works in progress that I'm currently working on. But because there are so many projects, I didn't want to make this episode too long. I think what I'll start with is the first exciting announcement, which is kind of time relevant, and then I will talk a little bit more about my other announcement after I've spoke about the knitting goodness part of the episode. Okay, so a few months back now, Eva from the Perth Festival of Yarn asked me to be, along with 11 other dyers, be part of this year's yarn collab club. And obviously yeah, thank you, please. And my month is for the month of August, which obviously we're not into August yet, although by the time this goes live we should be the 1st of July. But today, with it being the 1st of July, pre-orders will be opening for my month of the collab club, and I wanted to show you the yarn live on the camera so you could see it rather than just the photos, so you get to see it properly, or in a second way, I suppose. I mean, obviously you're not going to see it properly unless you were in my house, which you really don't want to be in my house right now. It's chaos. I have guests, we're in the middle of guest season, plus, you know, my house is not very tidy right now. So this year's collab club is based on the Hit Parade, so album covers, basically that, I guess, are influential to ourselves, and for me that was the Hounds of Love album by Kate Bush. It's just so happens to have fallen, bearing in mind these were decided upon months ago, that Kate Bush has just gone to #1 with Running Up That Hill from the Hounds of Love album. Because of the Stranger Things program being out, it's just the way it has fallen. But anyway, the colour I based it on was the Hounds of Love album, and provided this is not going to blow out on screen, I'll try and get it to focus. This is my colourway based upon that. I wanted to keep the kind of ethereal feel of the original album cover, which, if you know it, it's quite soft focus, lilacs and pinks and brown, like chocolatey browns and such like. So that's what I've done here. I've got these soft lilacs and dusky pinks, and then these dark chocolatey brown speckles as well in amongst it. There we are. So this will be the collab club for August for Perth Yarn Festival, and the way that this works is that pre-orders open today, the 1st of July, and will be open until the 21st of July, and then the yarns will be sent out by the 14th of August. So that was my first exciting announcement for this episode, and yeah, Hounds of Love colourway from me. So now we'll get into the main section of the podcast. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 finished objects, 4 of which are garments. I know, I mean, most of these were finished a few weeks ago, but it's a lot of garments. So I'm going to put the first one on to show you, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this garment that I'm wearing is my finished Red Moon sweater, which if I stand up, oh, that is a heavy chair, is a full-on autumn, Halloween even, sweater with long cozy sleeves, which is not as the pattern originally stated, because I have to change everything, and you'll have to excuse my creaky floorboards here. It has a colourwork yoke with moon phases, large moon phases all along the bottom, and we have extra moons and crescent moons and such like above those, and I'm really happy with it. Really happy with it. It's lovely and cozy and oversized without being super oversized. It's just kind of cozy size. I will sit back down. I think I might just sit right on the edge of this chair so I don't have to keep moving it between objects. The sweater is the Red Moon sweater by Born and Raised Knits, and as you can see, it's supposed to be, well, it's not supposed to be, but the main version of it is more of a t-shirt style, very wide neck on it, short sleeves, and yeah, I've not done that. You can also do full length sleeves with colourwork on the sleeves too. This picture doesn't show it very well at all, but there are colourwork sleeves there and colourwork on the bottom of the sweater, which I didn't do. So what did I do and what did I change? Well, I did a 24 stitch gauge, 32 rows on a 3mm needle, which I believe was pretty much to gauge. Yeah, my gauge was slightly different, but that's kind of, but the gauge that I used is pretty standard for me, and I used a 3mm needle, like I said, to achieve that gauge. I made a much tighter neckline, and I did a rib neckline, whereas on the pattern it has a rolled hem neckline, and it is very, very open. But I couldn't figure out a way that I would wear a very open neck sweater like that with the clothes that I have in my wardrobe, whereas this I can kind of throw on over a t-shirt or a vest top, over either sweatpants or leggings even, I suppose, if I'm around the house. But I couldn't figure out another way of wearing a very wide open neck top. We don't have very warm weather here, so it just didn't really make a huge amount of sense to have this kind of like in between garment. The yarns that I used, I decided to go with kind of like Halloween colours. So I've gone with a burnt orange and a charcoal, so it's kind of got those autumn Halloween vibes, which is when I'll probably wear it most. It has been knit in 100% alpaca, in Drops alpaca actually, and I don't have the ball bands to hand because I've thrown them out, I think. Oh, hang on, I have yarn stash in these drawers. Maybe I have some in here, and no, it's going to prove me wrong, I don't. But yes, it's 100% alpaca in anthracite is the grey, and orange mix is the orange. These were actually, well, the orange was left over from knitting my Ichabod cardigan last autumn, which was another autumn knit. It was an orange pumpkin style cardigan, which I'm about to knit a second version of, and I had plenty of leftovers, so this is why I've used this in the yoke of this sweater. I also made the sleeves full length. I did my own personal preference on the decreases for the sleeve, and I quite like a long sleeve which kind of comes to here with a short rib. Another garment that I've just knit, I stopped the sleeves where they should be and did like a 2-inch cuff, and it's just not for me, so I ripped out that sleeve and I did like this. I've made a nice loose sleeve, and I haven't decreased, I don't think, for the stitches right at the cuff. I've just used a smaller needle for the rib. In fact, I think this sweater, the 3mm needle was for the rib. That's right, so it's actually a 3.5mm needle for the sweater and a 3mm needle for the rib. And the rib is the same on the neckline, which is a very small rib. I did less stitches on the neckline and then increased to get the stitch count I wanted for the yoke. And I have done a 1.5-inch rib also on the bottom, and it's all 1x1 rib as well. So yes, that is the Red Moon sweater, and I'm going to take this off because although it is not a warm day, it's quite a dull day, which is why I'm sitting in the window today when I wouldn't normally. It's quite humid today, so alpaca and humidity, it's not a fun combination. So we'll move on to garment number 2. Okay, this one is finished, but I still have ends to weave in and I still have a steek to tack down. But this is what I would class as finished. Oh, and I have buttons to sew on. I will stand up and show you this one. This is, I still have to move the chair. This is the Nightfall cardigan from Ellie of Scandia. I know, if you've watched this podcast for a while, you'll know I am a huge fan of Ellie's knitting patterns. I've done several now and I have more on the needles and several in my queue. I have used a fade. The pattern is for fade, but I've adapted it slightly, and I've used a mixture of yarns from my own hand-dyed yarns and from Mothy and the Squid. So it has a colourwork yoke, as you can see, with the fade in the colourwork. It also has some flea stitches or lice stitches in the sleeves, which marry up with them just above the colourwork on the bottom of the cardigan too, which has these trees. And it's kind of, I guess you could say it's almost festive, almost autumnal, but not quite either. So it's kind of like multi-season, which is perfect. And I will sit back down now. I never thought when I sat down to record here that this floor is really creaky at this end of the room. So the pattern, where is the pattern? The pattern is here. Like I said, it is the Nightfall cardigan by Ellie of Scandia, also called, I haven't got the Norwegian name here. I believe, I'll try and remember and put it up on the screen. But yes, it is, like I said, a fade cardigan, but Ellie has used 5 colours, whereas I've only used 4 because I was only using 4 yarns. And it starts out with the colourwork and fades into the colours, colourwork on the bottom, and her flea stitches come slightly higher up on the body, I believe. In fact, they're throughout the body, but they just don't show up very well on this picture. I didn't want to do that because I was using variegated yarns with speckles and such like, and tweed bits in these yarns, so I thought the flea stitches just weren't really going to show up very well, and I wanted to really show off the yarns. I do have the labels for these ones somewhere in this bag. Okay, so let's start at the top of the cardigan. The collar and the top colourwork green and this green in the sleeves is one of my yarns, which is this one. This is BFL nylon blend, and it is in the colourway Nephrite Jade. And yeah, I have this left over from knitting my Zweig sweater a few years ago, and I still had quite a lot of this left because I dyed a batch specifically for myself. So I used up most but not all of it in this sweater. I still have another full skein of this too, so I will have 3 projects with this in at some point. The next colour you can see is another one of mine. Mine are the green one and the lightest of the speckle yarns. I have this much left over of this yarn, and this one is one of my quite popular colourways actually is Pumpkin Picking, and it has these orange and burnt orange and gold and green speckles in it. And again, this is on a BFL nylon base, and that's all I have left of that. I think I have some more of this in my stash, but it'll be a different batch. In fact, I used 2 different batches in here, so they're slightly different from each other, and I just strategically like kind of blended them in together. I used the slightly paler one in the colour work for the trees, for example. That one is a lighter batch than the one that is in the upper part of the garment. The next 2 skeins are both from Mothie and the Squid, and I bought these at Perth Yarn Festival back in 2019, I think it was 2019, when I was vending them myself. And I love Gillian from Mothie and the Squid's yarns so much. I'm a huge fan of her colourways, so I didn't want to put lots of speckles in. I wanted to use them up and really show them off. So I've used up the entire skeins in here and in the top of the sleeve and in the bottom section here, and again on the sleeves, until I ran out of yarn and finished off with some more of my own yarn at the bottom. The orange is called Oh My Goodness. Oh my goodness. And these are Mothie's labels, and it is a 85% superwash merino, 15% Donegal net base, and the bottom green one is Autumn Is Coming, and I specifically bought 2 skeins to use together. Originally I was going to knit a shawl with them, because if you buy a single skein, then you're kind of stuck with, well, what am I going to do with it? I've got to either put it in a bigger project and find other yarns to go with it, or I knit socks, and I prefer not to knit socks in merino. So I got 2 skeins that would complement each other and had enough contrast with each other that they could be used in a project, say colour work or something like that, or maybe not colour work together, but you know, something that would work together. And I tried knitting a shawl with them, and the pattern, it wasn't really showing the colours to their best, so I frogged that and used 2 other skeins that I'd bought from Perth at the same time, from Orlan Yarns. Instead, I saw a project on Ravelry ages ago where somebody had knit a cardigan this sort of a length, and they had faded several hand knit skeins together, and I loved the look of it. I thought it was brilliant. And then this pattern, again, Ellie of Skein Deer, it used 5 colours. I thought this is the perfect opportunity, so I used them in this garment, and I'm really happy with how it's worked out. It is a steeked garment, and like I said, I still have to tack down the steek. I do have a couple of steeking videos on my channel. Funnily enough, the first one, which was part of a Vlogtober or Vlogust or something video, seems to get more views than my up-to-date one, which is really weird. My up-to-date one is definitely better because I've done more steeking since then. Yeah, if you're going to follow instructions, probably don't follow the first one, follow the second one. But I have to tack down this steek. Steeking is really easy. My mum thinks I must be mad steeking. She thinks she would find it very nerve-wracking, and I guess the first time it is, but I can highly recommend steeking. As long as you research what you're doing and take your time with it, you'll be fine. And it does mean that you can knit everything in the round, which is great. I have done a 2x2 rib for the collar, a 1x1 rib for the cuffs, and a 1x1 rib for the bottom rib as well. And I think the only reason I did that was because I forgot I had already done 2x2 rib, which I've also done on the button bands. I have the buttons to sew on, and I think I'm going to use some little wooden buttons. I'm either going to use these little wooden buttons, maybe, or I'm going to use some other buttons which apparently are not in here. Yes, they are. And or there's some other other little wooden buttons, but these ones are a little bit bigger and stand out more on the cardigan. So I haven't decided whether I want the little more subtle ones or these ones. I just can't decide. The pattern stitched the gauge for this garment as 24 stitch gauge, which is my standard stitch gauge anyway for fingering weight. So I knit this on a 3.5mm knitting needle and 3mm for the rib. And I haven't really changed anything much. I think I lengthened the sleeves a little bit and maybe redistributed the stitches slightly. I'm having issues with this is all lumpy because of my sleeves. I'm having issues with yoked sweaters recently, I've noticed, in that, I mean, this is a bit oversized, but around yoke sweaters, once you get up in sizes, because of the way everything's graded, it'll be big enough on the bust, but then it's too bulky in on the shoulders. So next time I do a yoked sweater, I'm going to have to figure that out. But what I've discovered in one of the other garments that I've just knit is that it was already taken into account in the pattern. I picked up the pattern expecting to have to adjust for it, and I looked at the pattern and thought, oh, it's already been done, which is great. So I will take the lessons I've learned from that garment and put them into practice for my round yoke sweaters in the future. It's not so bad if you're doing a cardigan, because the way a cardigan kind of hangs like this, it kind of pulls the yoke down. But when you're wearing as a sweater, it's just kind of bulky here to account for the bust size that you want, which I don't need all this extra bulk on the shoulders. I mean, there's all this that doesn't need to be there in the yoke at all. So I'm gonna have to take that into account in future. Other than that, I am very, very happy with this. I love this cardigan. It's going to get so much wear over the autumn and winter, although we're coming into, just about coming into summer here. I would be wearing it now if I had finished it and woven and everything. I guess I could just kind of hide the ends, maybe just tuck them in. I think there's a little too many for that, so maybe that's a job for later on. So that's object number 2. Okay, this next finished object isn't a garment. I'm going to sneak this one in between the garments. It is an accessory. It's a hat, which I will briefly put on because it's not really warm enough. I mean, it's not really cold enough for it to be wearing hats around the house. It is the Buffalo Plaid Hat by Lily Knits. And if I turn my head and hopefully knock the camera like I just did, you'll be able to see that it is a checky plaid hat. I've knit this specifically for, actually I knit this intentionally to wear the end of last winter, the beginning of the spring, and I didn't get it finished. In fact, I'm still waiting on making a pom-pom for it. So I made a nice long brim on it so it can be worn slouchy style, as you've just seen, or I can turn back the brim, and I haven't woven the ends on this either, and it can also be worn more like a beanie hat, like so. Now I have long hair. I've struggled to keep hats on my head. They just kind of like go up like that. Drives me a little nuts. So I made a nice long brim so I can kind of give it an extra bit of turn at the front, so when the wind's blowing I can keep my head warm when I do the chickens. Yes, if you're new here, I have chickens and ducks and cats and a small holding because I'm a busy woman. I have used a nice burnt red and grey yarn, and I intend to make a pom-pom for the top. I just haven't gotten around to it. I keep forgetting to do it basically, and when I have got time and remember, I'm not really in the mood. The yarns that I've used are, well, the red is a hand spun yarn by myself, and it is this red and grey and black hand spun yarn, which I did a little while ago from a hand blended bat that I made on my blending board, and I have a video about that somewhere as well. Yep, and it's kind of an Aran, worsted to Aran weight yarn. And the other yarn that I used for some reason is not in this project bag, but the label is. The yarn that I used is Gilead yarn, which is really quite popular, especially in the UK, because it's one of the few yarns you can get that in this country without, since we, you know, left the EU, that's kind of got that, it's a woolen spun yarn, but it isn't too scratchy. So like Jameson of Shetland yarns are great for colour work, and they've got that woolly toothiness, but can be a little scratchy depending upon what you want to use it for. I find it's okay in something you're going to wear on the outside of other fabrics, but against skin it can be a little bit scratchy, although Shetland's not too bad when you kind of get used to it, but I do have quite sensitive skin. And with a hat, if I have like my fringe kind of, if you're American, bangs pushed back and the hat there, if I have something quite woolly, it's going to irritate my skin. So the Gilead yarn is a woolen spun merino, I believe, from France, and it is supposed to be a heavy DK weight. I would say it's definitely more of a worsted to Aran weight, and you can kind of see that on the end that I have fortunately not woven in. I'm not sure if it's going to focus on a strand of yarn other than my face. We shall see. There we go. It's not exactly thin like a DK weight. Even if you stretch it out, it's still fairly thick. So you can see I stabbed my finger with, what's it called, barbed wire the other day, because I'm clumsy like that. So yes, that is the third finished object, which isn't actually finished, which is pretty much the story of all my projects. Okay, next up we have another garment, and this one I actually have woven in the end, surprisingly. This is another full-on sweater. As you can see, it kind of covers the bum. Oversized slightly. I don't like a massive oversized sweater. It's a little creased up from being in my project bag. None of my objects have been blocked because I just haven't got around to it. It has a textured yoke, and again I've gone with the long sleeves to the knuckles look, with a short rib, a 1x1 rib, and a 1x1 broken rib for the bottom hem. I like a broken rib if I want a hem to hang straight, and I've knit this hem twice because the first time it was slightly shorter and it kind of pulled in and I didn't like it, so I knit slightly longer, an extra inch or so, and I put a broken rib which tends to hang flat rather than kind of cinch in, which is I much prefer. I just found my Gilead yarn on the floor when I was moving the chair, so that's what it looks like in the ball. But back to this item now. Okay, so this pattern is the Wild Posy sweater by Melody Hoffman. This is not a good photo of it, I have to say. There are two versions of this, and this is not a good photo of it. Let me see if I can find a second one. I cannot. I will try and put a photo up on the screen. But basically it is a textured yoke sweater, and it is knit with, in the pattern, Plötulopi, which is a unspun Icelandic yarn. And I can't wear Lopi. I just can't. I mean, Shetland, I can kind of get used to it, but Lopi, it's just too rustic for my skin. It really is. So instead I have used the, oh, I think it's 100% alpaca. Yes, it is. It is blown, no, it's not 100% alpaca. It's 65% alpaca, 28% polyamide, 7% wool. Drops Air. which I believe is a Aran weight yarn, and this is in colour 02, which is like a light beige. There are two versions of this pattern which are part of one pattern, which is written out 2 PDFs for each, one for each version. This is the Lunar version, and you'll probably see this better on the sweater itself, but the Lunar version has these kind of textured sections here at the top, in the middle, and at the bottom of the yoke. They're kind of like a little, I don't know what you would call that. They're like a long stitch, long stitch, and long stitch design. And the other version, it has a lace section, like little lacy holes where those are instead. I intend to knit at least one more of this because I love the yoke design. Was really, really nice, and the way the pattern was written was really well written as well. So I have done this, like I said, in a different yarn, and gauge wise I think I was pretty much on gauge. I haven't actually got written down anything for the needle size and such like. I believe I knit this on a 5mm needle, whereas the gauge needed for this was a 5.5, and I don't have a 5.5mm knitting needle, so either I knit this on a 5 or a 6. I think it's on a 5mm needle. The gauge was also supposed to be a 15 stitch gauge, so I suspect I've knit a slightly bigger size to account for that. What I was saying earlier about the yoke sizes on sweaters being too broad on the shoulders before they get to the bust, I don't have that same issue here, because the way the yoke is graded is that for the first few sizes, I think the first 2 sizes are basically the same up to a certain point, and then the next 3 or 4 sizes are the same stitch counts to the same point, and then the last the largest of the sizes have the same stitch count to a certain point as well. So you're not having this issue where if you're, say, in one of those middle sizes, your yoke is so much bigger for each size up, so you end up with this bulkiness around the shoulders. This hasn't got that because it has the same width of shoulder here as the previous 2 sizes have, and so on. It's only when you get to where you need to increase for the bust where those sizes really, the stitch count changes for each size, or almost every size, and the fit is so much nicer for a sweater. You don't have all this bulk here before you get to the bust, because normally it would be very, very bulky here, and it's not, and I'm really, really happy with that. The pattern is supposed to be like a cropped style, and in some ways I'm kind of regretting not doing that. I mean, it does mean I can wear it more with kind of loungewear around the house, which is where I am most of my time is at home. So I guess it's kind of, will get more use in that sense. But I also liked the length when I tried it on, when it was much shorter, and I liked that cropped look as well. So I think I will knit another one to a cropped length that I can wear with dresses and skirts and such like. Because as I am sewing more of my own garments, more dresses and skirts, I will have more items that I can wear a cropped sweater with. Like I said before, the changes I made, this was a sweater where the cuff on it is kind of wrist length and has like a 2-inch cuff, and I didn't like the look of it. It's not comfortable for me. If sleeves are like that, I'm going to push them up here. Even this, I will generally, if I'm going to be doing something, will push up my sleeves. But if I'm just sitting around, I prefer like a cozy sleeve. So I changed that. The neckline, I just kept it the same, and I just changed the length, and I changed the rib on the bottom from a regular rib to a broken rib. So yes, very, very happy with it. I have notes on the back of this pattern for making sushi. It's a little bit random, I know. Look, I have sushi notes. We were trying to make homemade sushi, which I've never done before, and yeah. Okay, this last finished object was supposed to use up what I had left over of the Drops Air But it turned out that I ended up having to buy another ball to finish both projects because I wasn't going to have enough, and I had to blend this into the rib at the bottom of both objects. But anyway, this is a vest. I wanted to try out to see if I liked a vest to be worn over something like a dress. So I made this little vest, as you can see, and it is a lace design on it, and it is that kind of cropped length to go over a dress. It actually looks better on my bigger flary dress that I had on yesterday. It has some nice, whoops, some nice narrow shoulders because I adapted the pattern, and it is a round neck with just a simple 2x2 rib at the bottom. The pattern is the Sarah vest by Claudia Q, and it is Claudia Q of U-Knit. There. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, and I've knit it pretty much to the same sort of length as the pattern stated. The only change I really made was the shoulders. The shoulders are quite wide and go over the kind of the cap of the shoulder, and I have made the sleeves narrower because I wanted to be able to wear a dress with kind of a gathered or a puff sleeve without the vest kind of covering the top of the sleeve and kind of squishing it, which I thought wouldn't look quite right. So I made it so it can be worn with a gathered sleeve. The yarn, as you know, I've used is the Drops Air Leftovers, and gauge wise I have used a 4.5mm needle for the main body and a 4mm for the rib, and a 16 stitch gauge 26 rows. And I don't think I really changed an awful lot other than the narrowing for the shoulders, which took some figuring out actually, because I didn't want them to be too narrow. I had to widen the neckline. Oh, I widened the neckline slightly as well because the pattern is quite a narrow neckline. So when I narrowed the shoulders, I wanted to narrow the neckline, which means I had to get this bit just right so the lace would sit right. And also it wasn't going to be too narrow that once you added, or too wide that once you added the rib on at both sides, it would still be quite wide on the shoulders. So yes, I have made a little vest, and I think I quite like it. I could do with a v-neck vest maybe. I don't know. The dresses that I want to make, some of them are v-neck and some are round neck, so I should probably hang fire and just wait and see. But it's a good way of using up kind of what, if you've only got a couple of skeins of yarn, because you don't have to worry about sleeves, the length is fairly short. So yeah, it's a good way of being able to use up skeins, or if you only want to buy a couple of skeins of a yarn. And it keeps you kind of warm without being restrictive. It's sort of this time of year when it's getting a bit warmer, but it's not hot. Well, I know everybody south of the Northern Isles of Scotland are probably saying, oh, wool, a bit cold, a bit warm for that. And yes, it is. Up here it is not. It is about, I don't know, 14 degrees Celsius out there today. It is overcast and it's raining and it's breezy, so it's definitely still sweater weather here. There's only really July, maybe the first week in August, where it's warm enough to wear a single layer outside. We have the odd day here and there, but mostly that's it. So yeah, so it will get somewhere with some redresses for when it's just that a little bit too cool. So I'm just going to take this off and we'll chat at the end. Okay, so the last kind of announcement I wanted to make today was that I am having a shop update. I believe it will be tomorrow, so that will be Saturday the 2nd. First yarn update I've had in a while, so I just want to show just a few of the colourways that will be going in the shop tomorrow. It should be tomorrow if you're watching this on the 1st of July. And yeah, so I'll just show you a few of those to finish up. So I've got a variety of different colours going on this time. I have got everything from some kind of foresty greens, which are really blowing out on screen and are not that bright in person. So that one is juniper trees, and I have some more bright summery colours coming up. So this one is maple ribbons. This is actually merino bamboo blend, which is perfect for this sort of time of year. And this one is called Summer Romance, because it's kind of got that warm kind of pinks and passiony pinks, but without being pink, and some nice golds and stuff in there. I haven't even took the ties off these yet. I'm not very organised this week. I've also got Collecting Sea Glass, which is these subtle sea glass colours, but also kind of a bit more beachy. And we've also got some really darker ones too. This one is, the name is eluding me. What's this one called? I can't remember, but this one will also be on the website. I am just going to leave it there. Oh no, this one, I really want to show you this one. Hang on. And there's some other ones there too. So yeah, so I will be having a shop update going live the 2nd of July too, on the what time shall I put it? What time do you think I should put it out? Oh, let's say, I don't know, 6 PM Greenwich Mean Time. It'll be like 5 PM, no, 6 PM British Summer Time, 5 PM Greenwich Mean Time, or Universal Standard Time if you are elsewhere and can work out upon that, because I can't. There are so many time zones and summer light day savings times for different parts of the world. I can't keep on top of them. That's it. I don't think I have any other life stuff other than, oh yes, I do. So if this is going out on the, what's it, the 1st of July, that means that tomorrow the tickets for Perth Yarn Festival go live. I think they go live on the 2nd of July. Pretty sure they do. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm determined, touch wood, find some wood, determined to make it. I'm not sure how I will be sleeping down there. I might take my car. We have been, we're on a kind of, been converting the car into a camper. Well, no, that's not true. Making it possible to use my car as a camper. Sounds, it's probably more accurate. We'll be doing the same with John's vehicle once he has gone to fetch a new vehicle, not new, but a new to him vehicle from where his parents live in Derbyshire. But I have a little Mini Cooper, and we've been making in the back so that it's a sleeping area with the seats forward, so that I can kind of camp in my little car, so I can go like drive somewhere else on the island, because our islands are bigger than you think, or one of the other little islands, and I can camp in my car comfortably and go sleep in there and go off on little adventures. So I don't yet know if I'm going to bring my car to Perth and sleep in it, although I've had a look online and can't really find anywhere suitable in that area where you can actually camp without being on a campsite, whereas in Orkney you can go pretty much anywhere. There's so many car parks with like public toilets but like near the beach and stuff like that, and people do it all the time up here. It's not a thing, but once you get south, it's just, people act really weird around people when they're camping in like a camper or even a car camping or something. I don't know, it's just a different way of living up here compared to down south. People up here are really chill, so I can do adventures up here. Whereas Perth, it might be an Airbnb, we shall see. But I'm determined to make it down this year. So yeah, if you're going to be there, put it down in the comments and let me know, so that I can kind of say hi when I'm there, because I'm really looking forward to going somewhere for the first time in the last 3 years. I haven't been off the island other than to Mum's house in 3 years. So yes, I'm going to leave it there, because this podcast is going to be super long, even by my standards otherwise. So I will speak to you on the next episode, which will hopefully be within the next week or so. And yeah, see you soon. Bye.